All right, so now let's go ahead and bring in that Photoshop uh, uh, folder that I sent everybody. Go ahead and bring that in and import it. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and import it here. Again, I realize not everybody's using this, but if you are, this is good to know. So there it is. There's my folder. I'm going to bring it in. Okay, actually, yes, let's do this. Hang on, let's start over because it's going to take a second to do it right. So when you do bring it in, because it starts from the import, it's very important that you do it right when you import it. All right, so let's go back in. So I'm going to import this. And where is it? Duke, there it is. All right, so it's going to come in, import folder. It's going to see the PSD. You're going to get this window. It's going to ask you some questions. Import as, merge all layers. You hit the drop down and you get a bunch of different options. I would recommend you select sequence. Okay. So before you even bring it in, you have to figure out the best way to bring it in. So if you've done a multi-layered Photoshop file, then I would recommend bringing it in as a sequence because it brings in all the layers. Okay, these are some layers I added earlier. I'm going to stay out of that bit. Here I'm bringing in the 3 key layers I want. You probably don't see these when you're bringing in. You're probably just seeing these 3. All right, so make sure they're all checked. Background, Duke, Happy Holidays. Okay, click OK. And then it's going to come in here, came in the folder, but when you open that up, you're going to get the layers here, but then you get the actual combined layers plus a separate sequence with the actual PSD. See? So when you double click on the sequence here, right, you see how you can see it's a sequence. Do that again. It opens up and it shows you all 3 of these layers. Okay, because this is how it lives in the Photoshop document, right? So let's separate these here in Premiere for a minute. Right, we've got the top layer, which is the text, right? I'll slide it over so we can just kind of separate it, right? So that says Happy Holidays, right? The second layer here is this dog. This is something I did for a colleague at work. She fostered dogs and she wanted to send a cute little Christmas card or a Christmas video or something to some friends. So there's her dog, and I cut him out from a background. So he's got black behind him, which is alpha, right? And then, of course, the background is this sort of stock little background, right? So those are your 3 layers, right? Now, let's say, okay, well, this is directly in from Photoshop. You can see it's all, the extensions are .psds. So let's say you want to change something. And by the way, since you brought it in like this, you can access all the motion effects on each one of those layers. So you can animate this now. You create it in Photoshop, import it as a sequence, and now you can animate each layer, right? You want to mess around with the titles. You want to position them. You want to make them bigger. You can animate them, do whatever you want, okay? Same with the dog, right? You want to make them bigger. You want to, float them around, do whatever you want, okay? Put him back. And same thing with the background, right? So you can animate that and do whatever you want. Okay, so all of that, all of you have access to all those keyframes, right? That all of those options are there. Okay. Now, what's nice about the what do they call it? The integration with Adobe is that, let's say I want to change this title, or I want to change the color, or I want to do something to that font. Well, you can go ahead and actually double click on it. Actually, you want to select it, right click, and you can go right into Photoshop directly from here. This is why I recommended you download Photoshop. Okay. So what's nice is I can click here, edit in Adobe Photoshop. And when I click here, it actually opens up the file in Photoshop right from your timeline in Premiere. Okay, give it a minute. And when it comes back up, there you go. Now you're looking at this in Photoshop. Actually, I don't think you're seeing that. So hang on, let's go back in here. There it is. Wait, there's Photoshop. Okay, so now this just opened in Photoshop. And you can see I've got all my layers here, right? There's my title. I'm not gonna teach anybody Photoshop here who doesn't know it, but I'm just going through it. If you're starting to learn it, then hopefully some of this is making sense. And so now there's my happy holidays. Actually, let me go ahead and delete these for a minute. That's confusing. Okay. So let's say, okay, well, I like the happy holidays, but I want to change the color on it. Okay. Well, first off, I'm going to right click and check to see if I've done a gradient overlay. So I can, adjust that. If I don't like that, if I want to just do red, click, whatever. What I would recommend if you want to change something, first off, let me actually put that back on. Right, because that was kind of fun. Gradient overlay, boom. And then duplicate it. My recommendation would be to duplicate that layer, deselect the old layer, and now you can change that copy in case you really like what you did here, right? Just like you do in Premiere. So now we can go in here and say, okay, well, I want to change this. Let me try this. Let me get rid of this gradient thing. These are blending options again. And let's say, I don't want that to be red. I want that to be green. So let's go ahead and click on that and change that to green. So we'll highlight it and let's find green, boom, and then there we go. I like that. It feels more festive. So now you've changed it in Photoshop. Save it, right? Always save. You've duplicated that. Now go back into Premiere. And let's see, I got to go back into Premiere so you can see it. And here's what happens. Okay. Give it a second. Well, it should update. It's not, hang on a second. It usually should change. Hang on a second. Share. Oh, I think I know what happened because I think it was looking at this layer. So let me just go ahead and change this layer. Okay, so I duplicated that. I should have kept this duplicate up here alone, right? And then I'll put that back. And then I'm going to go back to the original one, which is, I think it's what it's really looking at, right? So now let me do it here. Take that out. Now let's color it, right? Because that's the layer I brought in. See, I didn't bring in that layer. This was the layer it's looking at. So now I'm going to change it to green. Okay. Click. There it is. Save it. Save it again. Now it should update. There it is. There it is. Let me go back. So you can see now it changed. Oh, wrong program. Where's Premiere? There's Premiere. So now you can see in Premiere, it just changed. You can see that it changed right there because I went back into that same layer, made the adjustment, and it updates right in Photoshop. And so you can keep both of these programs open. So that is a nice level of integration that works really seamlessly with Photoshop and Premiere. So if you're looking to do something like that, that gives you that option to bring in that full PSD. Another technique you can do, also before I move away from that topic, when you create your graphic, if you're going to create something specifically for a video that you're doing, what I recommend is, in order for everything to fit right in your sequence, say you're doing 1920 by 1080, create your Photoshop work in that same format. Okay, right? So when you go in to first create a new program, right? File, new, right? Go in and grab, for example, you've got film and video, right? And there's your HD 1080, 1920, 1080. So you set that up and make sure you're setting that up. So when you design this, okay, for a 1080 project, it's going to fit. So however you compose it here, right, in Photoshop, it's gonna work perfectly. It's gonna be the same composition, the same scale, the same relationship to all the other elements in that graphic in your video, right? So that's very important. Create that video, create that Photoshop document in the same format that you're editing it. Okay.